Hello everyone, it's been a little while, right? No, it actually hasn't. We're actually making an effort to get more content out. So, in Kiran fashion, today we're actually going to be heading to the bike to playing games. That'll be a ton of fun. We're going to be lifting up the stakes again, raising them up to what we're used to. Playing 5-10 hopefully at the bike if they can get us a seat. But we have a special guest in today's vlog. The one, the only. Folks, so we're heading in now. BJ, co-pilot for the day.
Yo.
What are you gonna be playing today, BJ?
I'm gonna be playing the 2-3.
Nice. It's like a 300 max?
300 max.
Got it.
Minimum.
I think this is the only 2-3 game. No, Hustler's also the same way, but most of the casinos here in LA, as you guys know, are like 20 big blinds max. It's kind of a joke, so. Nonetheless, we're pulling up to the bike now. I'll be hopping into the 510. Shout out to the dog shit on the floor, but let's see how this goes, y'all. So the goal now is to actually get serious about recording more often, getting into play some sessions. So today, day off from work, so about to run in there. By the way, shout out to Justin, friend of the vlog, makes some amazing clothing, 1340 Collective. Check him out if you haven't already. All right, we'll check in when we check in. Alrighty, so a little more personal, a little more one-on-one, but we have quite a few hands to talk over today. I think like 4 or 5, something like that, something in that range, but they're pretty simple. There's a couple that are pretty intense. Let's hop right into it. Alrighty, so a little backstory. We've been waiting for about an hour for the 5-10 game, waiting for our name to get called. And finally, there's like 20 names on the board. They decide to open a must-move game, and that's where we end up getting seated. We take the best vlogger seat, I believe, which is either seat 2 or seat 8. We get seat 8, and I look down on my very first hand, and you wouldn't believe it, but it's pocket aces. Unfortunately, it folds all the way to me on the button. I open to $40. We get a fold in the small blind and a fold in the big blind. You can't make this up. It's unfortunate, but hey, these things happen, I guess. So moving on to the next hand. Would you believe it? This is the third hand of this session. 3 hands in, and I look down at pocket aces once again. You would not believe me when I say this, but yes, it is true. We look down at pocket aces, 2 black aces. Couldn't have asked for a better situation. We get aces once again. No one's gonna believe us. So I go ahead and open for middle position. It folds to the small blind who thinks about it for a little bit and decides on a fold. And the big blind looks like we're just gonna be playing heads up again.
Can't believe it.
Actually decides to fold as well. You literally cannot make this up. Pocket aces twice in the first 3 hands, and we get 2 folds. What the fuck is going on? Alrighty, so after all that craziness, hopefully we can finally play a hand. I have the straddle on, and the person directly to my left, under the gun 1, decides to raise to 60. The gentleman in the big blind, who is definitely an action player, decides to complete, and it's on to me in the straddle. I look down at ace-jack offsuit. I definitely like 2 of the 3 options. Love 3-betting this hand. Love just calling this hand. And I think at this point it's just kind of like a coin flip. I actually tend to play aggressive in spots like this, especially when you're playing so deep, especially against a mark of the table, which is usually me because I'm the worst player of the table. But unfortunately, I just decide to call, which is, again, it's fine. We do that, and we go to a flop. The flop is jack 6 for 2 spades, so there is a flush draw out there, but for the most part, a pretty fun board for what should be the big blind and my range, which is the straddle, and checks over to the initial raiser, who decides to check it back. I think when he checks back, he's gonna have a ton of showdown value, so some middling pairs, some ace highs, not too many king highs. The only king high that I think isn't c-betting this flop is like, I think he's going to have mostly showdown value here, so we're just proceeding with caution, even though we flop top. The turn comes a 9 of clubs, doesn't change too much besides the fact that there's now some some straight draws that do come, backdoor straight draws that come, as well as the fact that Jack 9 obviously improves to 2 pair. The big blind decides to lead out here for $100. It gets to me, and I think the best course of action here is to just call. I did think about a raise here, and obviously for value, targeting hands like Queen Jack, King Jack, 10-9, something in that ballpark. If I'm raising, I'm just doing this mostly to target a player. And the player to my right is exactly the kind of player I want to be targeting. So after all that thinking, I decided to just call, and it gets over to the gentleman who was the initial raiser. Doesn't think about it for very long and decides to fold. The river is a king, so the flush draw breaks out, but King Jack improves, as well as Queen 10 improves to a straight. When the big blind decides to lead though for nearly pot, betting $330, it puts me in quite a bit of a predicament. Not the ideal river considering the backdoor straight draw gets there, Queen 10, which is a reasonable lead to be honest from the big blind on the turn. Obviously 2 pair gets there on the river, which is King Jack, but when he bets near pot, so this is probably like 90% pot or so, I don't think that he can have worse than 2 pair in this position. But hands that he can have that are definitely worse are going to be like, that's the open ender on the flop, there's a gut shot on the flop that missed, there's a flush draw on the flop that missed. There's so many hands that I feel like make up what should be a bluff on the river, and he should be kind of polarized in this situation. Mostly because my hand is fairly face up as a 1 pair holding and sometimes a missed flush draw. And if he's targeting a hand like that, I think he's going to definitely want to be petting at least above 60% in this situation. With all that being said, because he's polarizing himself, like I said, he has to have at least 2 pair. And in this instance, I just feel like there's some more bluffs in his range, being those flush draws, as well as those open enders, those straight draws on the flop that just totally bricked out, that I just have to call here, because this is going to be probably the best hand I'm ever going to have on this river, besides maybe King 9 would be the only better hand that I can get to this river with, that I'd call turn and call river. And sometimes Queen 10 I might have, but even then, it's weird. Ace Jack is obviously going to probably be the best hand I end up with on the river, so definitely can't be throwing this away. After a little bit of thinking, I decided to call, and of course, our table mate chose King Jack of clubs, if I'm not mistaken. So it's unfortunate, it happens. You feel like you have a decent grip on the hand, and there's no way they can't be doing anything but bluffing, but obviously they aren't. They got it. So unfortunate situation there in our first hand played of the day. Pretty substantial pot, and it sucks to go aces, ace jack, and get 3 outed, but it's a part of the game, right?
So played the 2-3 session at the bike. Overall, it was a pretty good session. Very slow, not too many big hands. Where we made our money, which wasn't that much, was in our bluffs. Lost some money in trying to see hands through kind of thing. So the first hand I have for you guys is the ace king with the king of spades and the hijack. It folds around to me, and we're about 6-handed, and I raise to $12. The button, small blind, and big blind follow. It goes check on a flop of 10-7 deuce with 2 spades, and I see that I have the king of spades, so I actually like a bet here. Along with some overcards, my hand is actually pretty disguised. I could have anything really with this range, so betting $30 was a pretty reasonable bet, especially with 3 guys behind. I want to rep pretty big, and then also, I want to punish hands that are 10s, 7s, that want to like tag along, and I could probably catch with overcards or even a bluff on the river if the cards come out right. So the button ends up folding, small blind folds, big blind comes along, so we have $30, $108 going into the turn. On the turn, a 4X comes, and this card I don't really like. He ends up checking, and I check back. A spade didn't come on the turn either, so it was like a 4 of diamonds. Kind of giving up by now unless I get the ace or king. Or something, maybe force him to check. Then maybe I could probably construct a bluff on the river. So the river comes a 3 of spades, which completes the spades, and the guy ends up betting $50 and into $108. I think about it for a decent amount, with the king of spades. You could probably make a case for a good bluff, but I just thought that I don't think it was right. So I end up folding, and that's okay. I mean, you don't want to bluff on every blocker card.
So now that my anxiety is kind of settling down, just about to I'm feeling a little more comfortable. Again, it's not that the stakes are getting to me or anything, because we've played these hundreds of times on this vlog. We get to this next hand, and it's quite the hand. It folds to the hijack, which is the gentleman mentioned in the previous hand, who decides to open a 40. It gets to me in the cutoff. I look down at Jack 8 of hearts, and I decide to 3-bet to isolate him. Obviously, I'm isolating him because I think he's the weakest player at the table, and playing heads up in hands where I'm in position is going to be the most optimal, the most likely way for me to win money from him. So I go ahead and do just that by 3-betting, make it $160. The gentleman to my left, which is, again, the same players we've been playing with all these hands, who was the initial raiser from the previous hand, decides to 4-bet it, cold 4-ball me to $400. The one thing I will say, though, and again, I don't read too much, I don't dive into this to an extent where it becomes overwhelming and I let it get to my head, but he was a little bit shaky with his sizing. He was thinking about it for quite a bit, pulled chips and drop chips and then pulled chips. So, you know what I mean? I think he was a little indecisive for his sizing. So it's something to just consider. Not something that I, bet my house on, but it's something to just be aware of, maybe as a tell in the future. It folds to the hijack, who makes the fold as well, comes back to me. If you read any of these GTO books, being able to defend against 3-bets and 4-bets, because if you don't, you just make it very easier to kind of bully you. Although I can do a pretty good job at justifying this pretty suspicious play, I think what I will say is that, look, I'm here to make a vlog that's entertaining first and foremost. Everything beyond that, because again, I have a career outside of poker. Yeah, this is probably not the optimal play by any stretch of the imagination, but that's not the point. I'm here to make something that's interesting to you guys. The last thing I want to do is put a boring vlog together where I run aces into kings and scoop $1,000 pot. Like, to me, it's pretty damn boring. So nonetheless, it folds back to me. It's $400 total. $220 to go. There's just no way I can fold for this sizing. It's just way too small. And considering we're over 300 big blinds effective at this point, I just don't see how I can possibly fold. So I go and do just that. I want to defend my 3-bet. I go ahead and do just that. The flop is ace, ace, jack with 1 heart. So we have that backdoor flush draw to bail us out if we need to, as well as flopping a pair here, which is, never the end of the world. I go ahead and check, and he decides to check it back. The turn is a deuce of spades, so our backdoor flush draw bricks out. I check once again, and to my surprise, he checks back one more time. We get to the river, which is the 10 of clubs. Again, everything bricks out except for that king-queen straight draw. I go ahead and check, and he decides to bet finally, and he bets super small. He bets $225 into around $850, $860-ish pot. The one thing I will say that's super important for you guys to realize is this is what he has, okay? He has quad aces, ace jack, or kings or queens. He has one of these hands, right? It's very infrequent, and then we'll throw in the one oddball pocket nines that he just throws into turns into a bluff for whatever reason. I don't know, not likely, but again, I'm just stretching. I'm just trying to show for different players and stuff. The point is, I'm definitely behind, right? And I feel like the biggest leak in my game where it's I call out their hand and I'm I call just because I want to see what they got. And I'm yeah, I guess I was right. But the principle of this is, and it's very important to know that is, I would bet my life on it that this guy has kings or queens here. The way he's betting, the way he's played the hand, he's trying to eke out a little bit of value for me. He's trying to target my hand, which could be a 1-pair holding, obviously, that is inferior to his. So I think he has exactly kings, and he's targeting with this bet exactly the hand, which is king jack, queen jack, or pocket queens, by betting this sizing on this board texture. With all that being considered, I take quite a bit of time before deciding to raise to $800. So I make it $800 in about $1,000-ish pot, somewhere in that realm, $1,075. And the reason I'm doing this is because I have a very important card. I have the Jack of Hearts. And what is very important for this matter is that I have one of the most important blockers in the situation. I will very, very often have flopped the full house here. The hands that I'm gonna have here are super polarized and super nutted. I'm gonna have ace jack suited, at least I'd say about 1.5 combos of that. I know, obviously there's more combos of that, but how many times am I going to 3-bet and then call a 4-bet with ace jack suited? Let's say 1 time. Let's say that's one of my value hands. I'm going to have every combination of jacks here. I'm gonna have, let's say, one combo of king queen suited here. So I have so many nutted hands, and there's very, very few bluffs. Besides Jack 8, which is an insane hand to have in my range, a really bad hand to be that. This is the nut low hand I'm gonna have in this spot, I think. Besides that, I have no worse hands and hardly any hands for bluffs. If I didn't tell you the hand I had here and I played it like this, I think you guys would all definitely put me on a value hand at least. I'm sure some of you wizards will be like, no, this is always a bluff for whatever reason. But anyways, we make the raise. He thinks about it forever. He's tanking for what feels like an eternity. And after quite a bit of thinking, he decides on a fold. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we got him to fold. I was so certain of it. I asked him, hey man, did you fold kings? It's a pretty shitty thing to ask somebody that just lost about what they had. But he does confirm that he had pocket kings. So it feels great to put somebody on a hand. And besides putting them on a hand, getting them to fold said hand that's better than you, it felt kind of like, I don't know, I felt like a superhuman for a sec. Hey, if you guys are still watching, do me a big favor. If you guys are enjoying the episode, make sure to click the like button down below. It literally costs you $0. And if you guys are feeling real frisky, share this with your friends. You know, let them know that C2B exists. And again, if you couldn't win the giveaway, wouldn't you want one of your friends to? Nah, I hope you win it. Anyways, enjoy the rest of the video.
The second hand I have is pocket sixes in the cutoff. I raise $15 to a limp under the gun. Again, we are six-handed. I get a call from the small blind and a raise from the big blind to $55. The under the gun ends up folding. We're pretty far into the session and I haven't played so much. And we also had a small blind call our raise. So I was like, there's a good chance this small blind will put in money as well to make it pretty reasonable to call here. And you know, if I hit my sixes or if the board runs out in a way that looks pretty favorable to my range, then we can make a bluff here. So the small blind does end up calling the 55 as well, so we have $165 going to the flop. The flop comes out king 9-5 rainbow. Everyone decides to check. The three better is giving me a good look. You know, he's worried. I don't know. You can tell that he's worried about what I have, and I think he's putting me as pretty strong. So it checks around. The turn comes an 8, which is actually a pretty good card for me. We have the pocket sixes. You know, if they don't have a king, if they have ace highs, you know, pocket sixes to showdown would be pretty good. And also we have the gutter ball to a straight. So it checks around again. And I think for a little bit, $165 in the pot, I think a bet of $80 makes sense here. I feel like I can get called by pretty weak holdings. And, you know, I want to represent the king. Also stronger holdings as well. I think betting $80 here, a little more than 25 big blinds. It's pretty strong into two players, especially since I was the initial raiser and then I was the first to call the 3-bet. You know, I'm getting looked at like I have a big hand, so I feel like everyone else is pretty weak. I feel like small blind is pretty weak, and I feel like big blind is obviously pretty strong since he was the original 3-better. We get a fold from the small blind, and then we get a hesitant big blind. He ends up tanking and then folding. And we take it down with our pocket sixes. I end up finding out that he had pocket queens. I don't know how true that is. The last hand I have is the 8-6 of diamonds in the big blind. We get a raise from the hijack to 15. The cutoff calls, and I follow, calling $15 from the big blind. The flop comes 9-7 queen with one diamond. I check, hijack, bets $20. Cutoff ends up folding, and I call. The turn comes a 9 of hearts. And it goes check, check. From this check, check, I'm thinking, you know, it could very well be that he has ace highs, 10 jacks, 10 kings. So the turn goes check, check, and the river comes a deuce of spades. I decide to put out a bet of $65, and he ends up folding. I actually don't like this river bet so much, but because he was displaying so much weakness, I decided to take the chance and put out a bluff, thinking that he could fold, and I think I represent at least a pair of queens, even if it is a small pair. I think my analysis of him having probably an ace high or maybe a missed straight draw, maybe a missed gutter straight.
I'm under the gun, and obviously I have pocket aces. I raised to 40. Everyone folds except for our favorite friend on our right-hand side. Yes, our favorite friend from what feels like every single hand we've played, he decides to defend. The flop is Ace Jack 7, and I will mention that there is one heart on the flop. The gentleman decides to check it over to me, and I decide here, having the board crushed, like in the last session, where we talk about down betting, which is important. You want to have c-bets on these board textures for when you have King Queen, King Jack, King 10, hands like that. You don't always just want to flop and smash the flop and just kind of slow down and be trappy McTrapster. That doesn't really work most of the time. Like they say, when you have a good hand, put money in the middle. I do just that. I bet $30, which is again around 35 to 40% pot. The gentleman on my right decides to make the call. The turn is a fun card. It's the 4 of hearts, so it puts the backdoor straight draw. Not very likely, but it does bring in the backdoor flush draw. The gentleman again goes ahead and checks to me. And once it gets to me, I think it's time to ramp up the aggression and bet pretty big here. Near pot or above pot. I bet $160. It gets over to him and he thinks about it for actually some time. So now I'm like, all right, let's have some fun. This is a great situation, obviously. Let's get him to call. And to all of our surprises, he decides to raise it to $400. Yes. Even I was confused. It's hard to see too many insane hands, maybe besides like some kind of weird 2-pair like 7-4 or Jack 7, but a pretty insane card, pretty insane raise nonetheless. And after quite a bit of thinking, I have a couple of options. Obviously, we could just 3-bet and try to get it in, or at least try to induce, or just call and hope for no action killing rivers, where he can either punt it off to me or he improves somewhat and gives me the rest of his chip stack. I think there's enough out there where I feel like it's really important to get the money in on a turn that should really be driving action. So if he has a hand like Queen 10 of hearts, if he has a hand like King 10 of hearts, where he has like some kind of gut shot plus a flush draw, or any flush draw really, there's a very small likelihood that I'm going to get the rest of his stack on the river. Usually, for the most part, when people miss that runner flush, they usually tend to shut it down by the river. So in my head, I think it's time to raise it by 3-betting and getting a little more money in the pot. I go ahead and raise to $1,000. I kind of want him to, I obviously want him to commit his stack now when he has a hand that's drawing, as opposed to getting to the river and allowing him to either make his hand and me not forcing him to put any more money in when he's behind. But not only that, there's just rivers where it's like the deuce of spades and he just like gives up, like check folds. And that's not what we want, obviously. We want him to put as much money as he can while he's behind. I have the nuts right now. I'm not afraid of anything besides obviously maybe a heart or a straight card coming on the river. With all that being said, like I said, raised to $1,000 and he pretty quickly decides to fold. So maybe I overplayed my hand, which again, I'm pretty open to admitting when I do something fairly poorly. I just want to thank you guys all for stopping by as usual. There's a couple things that I'd really like to ask you guys to do for me. If you guys haven't already, we have an insane giveaway going on as we speak. It's going to be going on for a couple more months until mid-September-ish. Because that's when the WSOP is arriving. So if you guys want to learn more about that, make sure to click that video. It's 2 videos behind this one. So not the one before this, but the one before that. It's a pretty great video, super simple, pretty quick. We're going to be giving away a 3-day stay in Vegas, as well as a tournament ticket into the WSOP this year. So your chance to win a bracelet, as well as a flight. Again, completely free. So if you guys want any more information on that, make sure to check out the 2 previous videos to get more information. Make sure you comment your favorite hands that have happened in the past month or so. We're going to be looking into them, and I'd like to add them to our next vlog to talk about what you did right, what you did wrong, what you could have done better, what I usually do, or whatever. Just put your favorite hands in the comment section down below. Whoever's comment that we decide to choose the craziest hand, are the most fun hand, we're going to be giving away $100 to, something like that. I don't know. Let's give back, man. I'm about giving back. So just wrapped up here at the Bicycle Casino, and I think they have a hotel here. Yeah. But how'd you do, BJ?
I did well. Made $30, 37. Tipped the 7 to the person who kept my chips because I was off the table eating a burger.
Oh yeah, I forgot that happened.
But yeah, we watched the Laker game. It was pretty sweet.
Dope. Let's see. I did okay, as you guys saw from that insane, just a lot of ridiculous hands. I mean, I don't know what it is, but when I come out to play, I just enjoy making it as difficult as possible for myself and the people that I play against. I guess that's the point, but I mean, fuck me. I just take it to the next level. I just get carried away. So, as you guys saw, that Jack 8 hand was pretty bonkers. I don't know if there's a right way to describe how insane that was. Calling pre with that hand against a 4-bet's kind of speculative, but who the hell is here to watch some shitty poker, huh?
Nobody.
Everybody's here for some excitement, and that's what we bring here on this channel. So, with all that being said, we appreciate you guys stopping by, hanging out with the C2B family. If you guys ever see us at a casino, stop us. I'm usually wearing a hat or I have silver hair. You can't miss it.
Can't miss us.
Close to broke. We'll give you guys some patches. They're free for you. And if you haven't already, click the subscribe button. Make sure to follow, like, check out the Instagram. We're growing pretty healthy on there. So, I think that's about it. Until next time, this Indian man's going to be gone. But we'll bring you guys a session soon. BJ?
Peace.
Dude.
Oh, that pack.